As you've probably been aware, you've probably seen as well, Iran are after bombing or striking Israel. And not that I have much interest in the subject, but it seems to be a solid enough litmus test for where people's hearts and minds are at the moment, right? So on the one hand, you have people who are pro-Palestine and they are pro-refugees and they're pro-Ireland taking in refugees. And they will now be celebrating the fact that a country is after being bombed and people are after being made homeless, potentially, right? So the very cause they champion, or the emotion that they champion their cause off the back of, is totally hypocritical, right? But sure, we know that, like. So they're applauding the creation of more displaced peoples, right? And I wonder if they would be so open as to take in Israeli refugees. Probably not, right? And then on the other hand, you have people who are probably applauding the fact that Israel has been bombed because they believe that the Jews are the bane of every person's existence in this world, and that any crumbling of culture or society in Ireland is predominantly down to Jewish people, right? Carte blanche Jewish people, right? And does that mean that Jews have played no role in it? Of course not. Of course not. But I would also just say that there's a war going on here, right? And that doesn't mean you can't pay attention or you shouldn't pay attention to what's going on around the place. It just, I don't even have a point to make, to be honest with you. I suppose it highlights the schism, not only between people, but also in people, right? That you could be applauding this sort of stuff anyway, regardless of which side is getting bombed or which side is doing the bombing, right? And the issue that you see as well is that we have Irish soldiers who are over in the Lebanon. They're over in those regions. So now there's no sense for applause. There should be no sense for applause because you have Irish lives that are probably going to be directly affected, if not directly eradicated over there because of what's going on, right? And of course, naturally, you could say, well, they shouldn't be over in the first place. Fine, but they are, right? And I've seen in the budget as well, the armed forces are after getting, I think, 1.3 billion euros in the budget. And for what? A lot of it's hush money, I would imagine, because I seen today an army transporter van, like a 18-seater or whatever the size, the scopes are on the vans, but they had windows the whole way down the side. And I seen two soldiers, two members of the armed forces, and one driving, one driver's passenger, uniformed, right? And in the back, Middle Eastern men in civilian dress, no army fatigues or attire on them, right? So you can't make the claim that they've been here for a few years and they're in the armed forces now, because they're not, right? And they were being carted off somewhere. One looked out the window at me. Another guy had hat down over his face, and I could only see another couple of them. Dark complexion, Middle Eastern looking, 25, 35-year-olds, right? So that's what our armed forces are doing at the moment. You have some who are giving their lives or risking their lives in conflicts and zones and areas that are foreign to them, trying to deal with mentalities and worldviews that are also foreign to them. Meanwhile, the stay-behinds in Ireland are bussing people around the country into probably designated areas that just look like other quickly thrown together barracks, right? So I've no real point on that other than to just kind of say a few things there on, I suppose, the nonsense, the confusion in anything and everything nearly that's going on. And again, I revert back to not an appeal to humanity, because people will think and feel and do as they please, but it's an interesting one. So either side seems happy at the moment. One side, nearly both sides, are kind of coalescing around Israel being bombed for different reasons, right? And that's an interesting thing. And the topic of the Jews and Israel and that is far too deep to get into in a little video, but it's just an interesting one on where we stand, right? So I don't know, that's about it on it. But what is the point of it all, and I suppose what good can we claim out of this conflict, if there is one to be taken out of it, right? And also the budget. So what's the point in even looking at where this money is going to? The very fact that these people have your money and are now selling it back to you in pure blackmail fashion. They've just been sitting on all these billions for the last couple of years, right? And now, prior to election, we're throwing it out, lads. You know, give me the smile and give me the bowl of boss. Here's 20 quid. You know, nonsense. But here we are, and we have, I suppose, a battle, a war on many fronts. We have not just a war with those in power and the need to get rid of these people from claiming every single thing that we have. They're not happy with taking your money off you. They want your mind as well. They want your thinking. You know, they want your creativity and your imagination and your will for living. They want to take that from you too. And recognizing, I suppose, the fact that people won't just give that up to them. They have, from my own perspective, they have brought in people who are willing to pump bullets into you if you kick up a big enough fuss and you start to pull these people from power. And if you scream loud enough and you demand in your actions, you demand justice loudly enough and assertively enough, they have these units boxed off strategically around the country, right? In barracks, well catered to, well fed, well looked after, and now living in modular homes that probably cost more than any Irish person's house ever will, at least yours and mine, right? So here's where we are. We have what's going on in the Middle East. Interestingly, it'll be interesting to see if the American military ends up in there. I don't believe it will, because I don't believe that whoever's sitting in that presidency office at the moment, I don't believe that they have control over the US military, because I think you would have seen boots on the ground in Ukraine otherwise, and in Russia. So I don't believe that you'll see an escalation from that side. I could be wrong, open to be corrected with time as it passes, but be that as it may, we have a war going on here across loads of fronts, and not only the media, the politicians, and these people that have been brought in here and have been bussed around by the Irish Army and the media, you know, and probably the guards as well at some stages. They are actually being bussed into places by the guards too. We have to deal with our own people and ourselves, right? And if we can clap our hands at the fact that the countries are being decimated and blown to pieces at the moment because we don't like them, or we attribute some sort of wrongdoing on their part, therefore it's justified in blowing them up. Sometimes, maybe, you know, but you have people involved in there that aren't involved in it, right? I shudder to think what will happen if there is an open race for power in this country. If law totally, or the facade of law or justice, which is just being propped up there like the Wizard of Oz kind of curtain, if that falls too much, or if people recognise that this is gone now, as it has been gone, it's certainly gone in the court system, I think you're going to see some chaotic scenes in this country on the streets. So I expect the worst, prepare for the worst, and hope for the best, really, isn't it? So go on, take it easy and look after yourselves.